Welcome to today's event, Getting Started with Crafter Cloud. I am Russ Danner, VP of Products here at Crafter CMS, and I will be your host and presenter for today. So let's jump right in. This is our agenda for today. First, we're going to create a Crafter Cloud trial, and that's going to be a live demonstration. And then we will move right into creating and editing projects in that trial environment. After that, we'll talk a little bit about DevContentOps and how we can use that to collaborate, and I'll show a demo of that. And from there, we'll take some Q&A. So that's our agenda. You can see there's a lot of live demonstration on here, not a lot of slides, and should be an exciting presentation. So with that, let's jump in. So to get started, I'm going to go over to Google and I'm going to go to craftercms.com. And there's our site. See how quick that was. And you can see up at the top here, we have a try button. You also have start your free trial. You can't miss it. Go ahead and click on that. And you'll be taken to a screen where you can start your trial. So here we're going to have to put in some information, my name here. And I'm going to use an email address that I have. And I'll set a password. And you can see you've got to meet some requirements there. Also, you have to use a corporate email address. So no Gmail accounts here and so on with the Gmail domain. So we're going to go ahead and start our free trial. And this is going to ask us for a verification token. So that should come via email. I'm going to go over here to my email and we'll wait for that. There it is. Okay, we're going to grab this token and go back to our site and put that in. And now this account has been verified. Let's go ahead and sign in. Okay, once we sign in here, we're prompted to start our instance. So we can read a little bit about the environment and so on. But the main action here is to just go ahead and start our trial. Once we click Start Trial, the system will start to spin up an instance for us. And you can see here there's a video that's going to play. In a few minutes, we'll go ahead and turn off the audio for that so we can talk. And this video is going to take you through the environment. So a lot of what we're going to cover here today, and but it'll give you a way to get acquainted with the environment. Now, up here, you'll see that we are busy spinning up your instance, and this can take a few minutes, right, because this is actually spinning up some infrastructure for you. Now, at some point, you will see your instance is ready, and you can click below, and this will take you down to a set of credentials. So at that point, whether or not you're finished with the video or not, you'll be able to find your credentials and you'll be able to move forward. So what we're going to do here is, instead of waiting for an instance to show up, I'm going to go ahead and bypass this. So if you hit refresh on this screen, you'll be taken to your console where you can see your instances starting. Now, again, this can take a couple minutes, so let's not wait for that. What I'm going to do is show you here that we've got some other emails talking about our trial starting. And when our trial does start, we'll also get some emails with our basic information about our instance and the opportunity to download our credentials as well. So there's some other emails that are going to be coming to you about your trial. Okay. Now let's go to an environment where that server is already running. And to do that, I'm just going to close these windows here. And I'm going to log in as another account where I've already started the trial server. So here you can see I've logged into that account. I've got a trial instance running here. I've got 14 days left on my trial. And then you also have the ability to start and stop your instance. Additionally, you have a logs tab. This will give you the ability to download server logs for your authoring application server, your Elasticsearch instance, your deployer, and on your delivery instance, we separate our infrastructure into authoring and delivery. So you also have a delivery application server log and a delivery search log. Again, that's Elasticsearch logs. And for example, these should be starting up. We can go ahead and click on those. Let's go ahead and download one. You'll see you can just pull that log and open it up and take a look at that. Okay. You also have a help tab. And here you'll find links to helpful documentation. So our documentation site, you'll find that here. You can also find links to our training portal, Crafter Academy, and to our blogs. These are technical blogs here. So these can help you get started with technologies like Flutter and Angular and React and Next and so on. And additionally, while your trial is in progress, you also have access to our support portal. So you'll also receive an email with credentials to this support portal, and you can log in and request help from the support portal. Okay, now let's go ahead and I'll just close a couple of these tabs here so they're not in the way. And we're going to jump over to our details tab here, and we're going to go ahead and create a site in our trial instance. So I'm going to click on the server, and this takes me to the authoring login, or what we call Crafter Studio. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And I'll need my password. So let's go ahead and grab those. There we go. We don't need to save this. Sign in. And I'll close some of these tabs. Now we're looking at the project screen in Crafter Studio. And from here, we can go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to click on Create Project. And here you'll see a number of templates that you can use to create a project. So if we scroll down here, we have a simple sort of editorial blueprint. You'll find blueprints for e-commerce sites that are backed by commerce tools. For example, if I chose to use these, you'll see that I need some credentials for commerce tools. And I also see a number of other blueprints. Here you see a Wordify, kind of like a blog site. We've got marketing sites. You've got blueprints for things that are not sites, like the Alexa blueprint. This allows us to support the content behind an Alexa skill. So let's go ahead and spin that up just so you can see that. So in this case, just showing here, this doesn't require any additional tokens or anything like that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to review those settings and create that project. And this is creating that project from a template. It's creating search indexes for that project and so on. So that takes a second or two. And here we're into this Alexa project now. This is a completely headless use case here. And you can see that in the tools, what you really have is a testing console. You have a fact browser where you can, and this is facts by month and year. And then you have basic documentation in here. And you'll see that the entire user experience is focused on facts and not necessarily things like pages and so on. Now let's go back and spin up another use case. So I'm going to go to what we call the launcher here. And you can see there's one project. Let's go back out to the project screen. And let's create another project. And this time I will create one from, let's say, this fitness blueprint here. Let's go ahead and use that. And I'll call this one demo. And we're going to review the details here. That all looks good. Go ahead and create that project. So again, we'll spin up another project here. Take a moment or two to create those search indexes and so on. And now we have our project. Now, typically, if this is the first time you've ever used Studio, you'll come in and you'll find it like this with all the tools backed off, and you'll just see your site. This is what we call in-context preview, okay? And it works regardless of the technology that your site or your project is built in. This could be a React-based site, could be Angular, it could be Vue and so on, or it could be a FreeMarker template-based site. That doesn't matter to Crafter Studio. We're going to be able to edit this content and work the way that we're about to demo here, regardless of that front-end technology. Now, the key with in-context preview is that it's a fully functional version of your project, but it's in a safe authoring sandbox. So we can make any changes we like here, and they will not be made live until we publish them. Now, what I'm going to do here quick is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to show you the publishing dialog. Okay, this is the first time that we've published this site. Obviously, we just created it. So I'm going to go ahead and say publish now. And notice this state here, this little blue icon up here. This shows that the item is brand new. When I click publish here, and I'll explain more about this dialog in a bit, but for now, let's just go ahead and publish this. What this is going to do is it's going to create a publishing target on our delivery infrastructure, and it's going to publish this site as it is, as it starts out right now on a delivery instance. And I'll show you that in a bit. Okay, and you can see now that the state has turned green, which means that this content has been published and is queued for deployment and will be deployed when that delivery infrastructure is ready. So now we have a site and we can start editing it. So let's go ahead and do that. If I want to make some changes to anything I see here, maybe this text here or this video and so on, I'm going to go ahead and hit the pencil, and that's going to turn on some editing capability. You can see I can hover over different regions of this site and I can make changes. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start making some changes. Okay, this is a club that I'm part of. It's a motorcycle track day club, and so anybody who spends any time around me knows I like motorcycles and food. So that's what my demos are all about. And so I'm going to go ahead and we'll set that title that way. And then let's say this video here, we want to change that. So I'm going to open up on my desktop here, which is why I'm showing my full screen. I've got some assets here for my demo. And one of the things that I've got is a video that I want to put over here. So I'm going to grab that. It's called SRT short, and I'm just going to drag it onto the screen. And you can see here that I can actually drag from my desktop into locations in the CMS if the content model is set up to allow that. Now, what the system's going to do is it's going to upload that video and put it in the CMS for me and present it to me. So as an author, I can see that. In the back end, there's some really neat stuff going on here. We store large assets like videos and mezzanine images and so on. We store those on what we call blob storage. So we can store really large videos. This happens to be a promo reel, so it's going to be pretty small, but we can store large videos on blob storage, things like S3 and so on. Or we can pull them from digital asset management systems that maybe you already have them deployed on CDNs and so on. So all those options are possible for you. Now, we've got a video here. I've got the title of my company up there in the left-hand corner. I want to make some more edits here. So maybe I'll say, come ride with us. And I'm going to change this here and say motorcycle track days. And you can see I'm editing in my styles. I see it right here on the screen. It's really easy. I just click on the text, make my edits, and I'm done. Here I can say, call to action here, sign up today. All right, boom, I'll stretch that button a little bit. That looks perfect, I love it. Okay, moving down the page a little bit, I've got kind of like an overview, and I think the structure looks good, but I want to change some of the assets. So again, I'm going to go back here, and let's see, I've got maybe a picture of this family here. This looks really nice. I'll drop this in. And you can see that the system knows, like, you can't drop an image over here. You've got to drop it in one of these areas that accepts an image. So down here, these accept images, and I can drop it. But I want to put the image here. So I'm going to drop it, and I'll just upload that image there. And here I could say, you know, let's join our track day family here. Join our track day family. Boom, done. And then that's in the parallax, so that when we retrigger that parallax effect, that'll show up there on the screen like that. And so again, you can kind of see how simple that is. Now, some of these regions you might have noticed, like if we click here, this is not giving me any ability to bold text or anything like that. And that's because that's from a design perspective, we don't want the authors to have change that. That's part of the design system here. But in some cases, you want to give your authors the ability to make some choices about text, like say they want to bold something. And so you can define a region as a what we call a rich text editor, or sometimes we call it an RTE for short. And at that point, you can also set up what they can do. So for example, can they bold things, italic things? Do you want to give them the ability to set a color, set specific styles, and so on? This is fully integrated with your style sheet. So you can have an author apply your styles, which helps keep your markup maintainable. Okay, so that was pretty easy as well. Now scrolling down here, okay, I see that this content here is good. I like the structure of this. One of the things I'd like to show you here is that, for example, when I'm not in edit mode, I turn those editing controls off, you'll see that this sort of has a card that hovers on it. And this kind of gets in the way of, maybe editing some content that's on the images behind the card and so on. And so you can create hints for the authoring tools that say, hey, when we're in edit mode, I want you to move certain elements around to make them easier for authors to edit. And I think, again, this just goes to show how much we really want to make sure that editors have a great experience editing the content. So now that we've done this, just to keep it simple, I'll just upload a couple of these. So we'll drop a picture here and let's change this to Bill. And we'll change this to owner operator. So let's say I want to now move this newsletter sign up further up in our design. This time I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to move it up. So I want to put it maybe right here under the video. Okay. And now I can change some things about it. Like, and say sign up. Okay, there it is. And there's a section down here that I don't like. Let's say workouts really doesn't apply to my company. So I'm going to grab it. And you can see when I grab things, I get that orange box over in the right-hand corner, and I can go ahead and drop it. Simple as that. Now that component is removed. What if I want to add a section very similar to the section up here about the club, but I want to add it and talk a little bit about the training that we offer? Well, I'm going to go to Browse Components or Add Components here, and I'm going to find an Overview component and just drag it where I want it. And again, I want it maybe right after the theme. So I drop that component. You can see I get an image location. I get some default text that I can then edit. So now I can pick an image. There you go. That looks fine. And I'm going to now edit some text here. So here's our first class training. Simple as that. Now we've made a bunch of edits. You can see you basically drag and drop, build your layouts. You point and click to edit your content. It's really, really simple to build these experiences. And you might be thinking about some things like, hey, I need analytics. I need maybe some lead forms. I need some other capabilities on my site. Well, what you can do to add those is you can go over to the Crafter logo here and open up this panel. And from here, you have access to things like your information architecture with pages and components. You have static assets and templates and so on. These are all configurable depending on your role. You also have access to site tools here. And if I go to site tools, then as an administrator of the system or a power user, a person who has an elevated role, I can get to this screen here where one of the options is plugin management. And here I can search for and install plugins of different types, things like HubSpot, lead forms, Trello workflow boards, and so on. And if I'm interested in, say, something like Google Analytics, I'll search for Google. I can find some plugins here like the Tag Manager and the Google Analytics plugin, and go ahead and say install. And here it'll prompt you for whatever that particular plugin needs. Are you going to anonymize the IP addresses? Probably should do that with GDPR in play. Do you want to enable analytics in preview? And what's your Google Analytics ID? We need to know that in order to install this plugin. So you go ahead and fill those out, and then that plugin will become available automatically for you with no additional work in your experience. And it'll start working. Okay, if you want to learn more about our plugins, you can go to craftercms.com, and right at the top, you'll see a marketplace, and you can read about some of the plugins that we have here. Some really great things like integration with AWS Media Live and Media Convert for live and on-demand video. There's access to and information about all of our blueprints and plugins, as well as some integration and implementation guides. All right. Now, we've made a bunch of changes to our site. So what I want to do is show you how we can publish that stuff. And you'll notice that on this screen here, we've got our authoring instance, but now we've published, so we should also have a live site, which we do, demo. So I can go ahead and click on that, and this will give me access to another URL. And you can see this is the site as it was when we published it. Okay, so we've made a bunch of changes. So what I want to do is go ahead and publish those changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my preview instance, and there's a number of ways I can publish. So here you can see now it's in a state of edited, and I could go here and say publish, right? That's one way to get to publishing. I can go here on this item and say I want to publish it, or I can go to a workflow dashboard, and here you can see all the things that I've been doing, and I can say publish from here as well. So I'll click on that and then click publish. Okay, now I'm going to publish the home page, and the system will calculate for me dependencies. Okay, this is not something you always have to look at, but sometimes it can be helpful. It says, look, you've changed the video, you've changed the header, you've changed a bunch of things. All of these need to be published in order to make your homepage update. So let's go ahead and do that. At this point, we can say whether we want this to go live now or later. So you can actually schedule content for a later launch. And you can also put a comment in about, why you're pushing a content to a particular publishing target. But let's go ahead and just publish. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we'll see in a moment here that these icons should change. You can also watch up here, there is a publish state where you can see items are publishing and when they're done publishing and so on. This can take a few moments, but again, you can now click on your live site, and once that deployment is complete, you'll see the changes. So we'll have to give this a second or two. Let's go ahead and see if this is deployed yet. And I do see here our updates. Okay, what we'll do now is kind of move on to the next thing. So we've created a site, and now we've published that live, and realized I forgot to show you guys something, and that's the fact that while we edited all this content here, okay, in a very visual way, this is all headless content. So we're still on the screen here. Let's open up Site Tools again, and this time I'm just going to go to this GraphQL browser here, okay. And I'm just going to make a headless GraphQL query to this instance for that site and show you that this is headless content. So let's grab this. Okay. And I'm just going to paste this query in. We're just going to ask Crafter for the header where we ask for the company name. So that should say Evolve GT. And we're going to ask for the trainer. We're going to ask for the page, some page components. We're going to ask for all the trainers on the site. And you see that we are going to ask for the image, the name, and the title. So let's go ahead and run that. And here you can see there's that headless response. So I do want you to see that even though it's completely visual, regardless of the technology, all the content is captured headlessly. And now we want to do some development with the rest of our team. So we want to now extend this with maybe new features. Maybe we want to update markup and change things. So we want to be able to get this content to other environments, let's say the dev environment or QA environment, a live environment, and so on. Or we want to get the site down to a developer's machine, because that's also possible for you to install the software here and then use it on a developer machine. So I'm going to show you what we call DevContentOps, and that's here. Let's talk a little bit about that. So these are the only slides I have. We all know DevOps, right? DevOps is basically the bringing together of developers and operations to help with the continuous innovation and integration and deployment of software. Well, when we're talking about content-heavy use cases, you have a third constituent. You have content authors. And so they need to be equal partners in this continuous innovative process. And so we call this DevContentOps. And what this really means is that we want authors to be able to work and create content and so on. And we want to be able to provide that content to lower environments to support innovation. Okay, we want to make that very easy. Now, if you've been in the CMS space for any amount of time, you know that taking production content and bringing it into a lower environment usually means that You've got to basically tell the production authors, okay, hey, we're going to take an export of the system today. So from this time to this time, please get out. And we're going to acquiesce the system and take a database dump of this stuff and copy this environment to another location. And then in that lower environment, you go do the same thing with the developers that are working there or the QA people that are working there. Stop what you're doing, and we're going to import this stuff, and we're going to overwrite everything that you have, and so on. And that is a pretty painful process. It slows down the rate of innovation a lot, and it stops people from working. So at Crafter, we're trying to solve that problem and make this a seamless thing that can happen as often as needed. One of the ways that we do that is we have built the platform on top of Git instead of a relational database. And by being based on Git as our repository, we can take advantage of Git mechanics, that distributed repository capability. And we use that to support certain operations. The first operation is what we call content back. And you can see here a diagram of content moving from right to left. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this happens. Authors working in production, they simply work and create their content, and they're publishing to the end users, the consumers. So that's when we publish content. Okay, and this process, this just continues as normal. Okay, anytime the authors want to create content, they're working, publishing content, and they're happy. Now, as part of the development process, we want to get that content back to lower environments. So in production, we can create a remote connection to a remote Git instance. Now, this can be GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, code commit, any Git instance that you want. And it's usually enabled by some amount of development tooling like GitHub and GitLab and so on. And then we can push content from production to that remote Git instance. So what we're saying here is that the Git that Crafter is using is local, okay, local to it. And then it can connect and distribute to remote repositories and push content there. From there, any lower environment can pull content down to it, including a developer machine. So now you can see, without interfering with anybody at any time, I can push content up to a remote and pull it down to lower environments. And I'm not just bringing the production content to that environment, I'm actually able to merge with that. So like, let's say I have some content in my QA environment that I don't want to lose. This is a merge operation. So I'm not going to lose that content, which is tremendously powerful. Now, that's what we call content back. We also want to make deployments easier, and we call this code forward. Okay, so how does this work? Well, developers working in their local instance against usually a local Git repository are going to use tools like their IDE and so on to create new content types, to create new functionality, new plugins, and so on. And they're going to be committing these to Git. And they can have any amount of Git workflow. This could be any number of branches and so on. That's what we would call Git flow. And ultimately, they're going to be making a pull request up to that remote GitHub development platform or GitLab or what have you. And when that content is merged to the branch that the environment is synced to, that environment can then pull that work down into it. Say you have a feature branch, you can merge that to develop, and then you can tag a release. And when that release is ready to go, you can merge it into dev, for example, and bring it to that environment and test it. And then you can merge it to QA and bring it to that environment and test it during code freeze. And when you're all good and ready, you can merge that to your main branch and pull it to production. And from there, once you're there, you can then publish that work to your live site. And so it's all Git mechanics that makes this really super simple. All right, now I'm going to show you a very basic version of this. All we're going to do is we're going to take the work that we've done here in this trial instance, okay? And I'm going to push it up to GitHub. So to do that, let's start with a GitHub account and a repository. And you can see here, you can go here and visit it if you like. It's right now it's bare. It's webinar getting started with Crafter Cloud. I'm going to hit refresh just to show you there's nothing here. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this Git address, and I'm going to go into my trial instance. It's over here, and I'm going to go to Site Tools. I'm going to go to Git, and I'm going to say New Remote, and we'll just call this Origin. Paste that in. Since I'm going to be pushing, I need to put a username and password. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put my key in. Go ahead and say create. And now we've got the remote here. I'm going to go ahead and push that content up. Okay. Now, if we go back to GitHub, or if you go to GitHub, you'll see all of that content here in the remote. Okay, now let's go back to that Git remote. So we push content up to Git, okay? And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go to projects, and this time, let's pretend that I'm, say, on a developer machine now. I'm gonna use the same machine, but I'm gonna pretend that I'm on a developer machine. I'm gonna say create a project, and this time I'm gonna choose from Git remote repository. Okay, so here I'm gonna call this demo 2, or let's call it developer, doesn't matter. Machine. And here you'll see I'm prompted for some information like the Git URL. Well, let's go grab that. And go down here to username. And again, actually, this is a public repository. So if I don't want to push back up, and you can try this as well. Let's go ahead and use a unauthenticated URL. I won't be able to push back, but I can, since it's a public repo, use this. So let's go ahead and say create project, and we'll spin that up. Here you can see there's my project. Okay, so now as a developer, I have this on my machine, and I can make some changes and push that back to the remote. And this local instance then is connected to that trial instance as a distributed repository. This DevContentOps capability is so powerful. It's totally awesome. And with that, that's our last demo. So we are going to move into some Q&A for the live audience. I hope that this demonstration has shown you how easy it is to spin up a trial in Crafter Cloud, to get started with some sample projects, to edit those projects, publish those projects, and also to retrieve your content headlessly and make development changes. So hopefully you've seen some things you like, and you'll check us out online at craftercms.com. You can start your trial very easily at craftercms.com just by clicking the try button. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.